Changjiakou, China, October 2017. In a rural community 120 miles from Beijing, residents make an extraordinary discovery in a local field. They find a 60-foot-long set of bones belonging to a highly unusual animal.
The remains unearthed in Zhangjiakou had antlers, it had prominent claws, it had a long serpentine body. So this created a huge buzz and a lot of fascination.
A video of the strange bones went viral on the internet, and researchers were baffled as they attempted to identify the bizarre creature. But many local villagers insisted that the bones were the remains of a dragon.
Dragons are a huge part of a lot of Asian culture, particularly Chinese culture. They are a tremendously important symbol for many, many people.
Dragons are perhaps one of the most defining elements of Chinese cultural lore, and they have been for thousands of years. Dragons symbolize knowledge, wisdom, otherworldly power, even. A lot of the early imperial families drew their authority from associating themselves with dragon blood or portraying themselves as descendants of dragons. So dragons are a very present creature in the Chinese cultural imagination.
Mainstream scientists remain skeptical as to whether or not the skeleton that was discovered in 2017 belonged to a real dragon. But the media frenzy sparked by its discovery suggested that many people, not only in China, but throughout the world, believe in the existence of dragons.
We have dragons everywhere in time and in different cultures. And it is fascinating because some of these cultures never met. They never had contact within history. So the pervasiveness of dragon myths in cultures across many folkloric contexts is probably no accident.
Dragons are one of the more fantastic creatures to study in mythology and folklore and legends because they're so widespread. They're a big part of our Western culture. Satan is described as a dragon in some passages in the Bible. They're one of the most powerful animal gods in Aboriginal mythology. We have dragons in Ethiopian iconography. And one of the fascinating things is the representations of what a dragon is supposed to look like. It remains remarkably consistent over time.
What's really remarkable is that if we consider all of these different influences that may have contributed to the dragon legends, they're all typically portrayed as being reptilian in nature, having scales and claws, often wings that are very bat-like or membranous in nature, a long reptilian tail with a strange structure or a spike or a stinger on the end, very sharp teeth, the ability to breathe fire. And so we have to consider the possibility that at least some of these dragon legends could be based on some type of extraordinary and perhaps unknown animal.
Is it possible that the many dragons described in legends throughout the world weren't just fictional, but were actually real? Perhaps the answer lies in examining some of the historical accounts in which people have claimed to have had encounters with actual dragons.
In bygone centuries, encounters with dragons were not considered to be fables or tall tales. They were written down and documented as historical fact. They were told as real stories of encounters with mysterious flesh and blood animals.
In the 8th century, there's an example recorded by St. John of Damascus, where the Roman army is immensely surprised when a large creature, described as a dragon, rises up behind them. They fight and ultimately slay the creature, and they skin it, and they send the skin back to Rome.
People took this extremely seriously up to the early modern period. A city in Germany called Worms is famous for its dragon fighter. In the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, they hung up dragon bones all across the city to prove that dragons are real.
Do the many historical reports of dragons prove that these legendary beasts were, in fact, real? Perhaps. But if so, then it naturally begs the question, could giant, winged serpents still exist today? According to some researchers, the answer is yes. And as evidence, they point to numerous sightings in the early 20th century of a flying creature that was known as the Van Meter visitor.
In the early 1900s, a town in Iowa, the small town of Van Meter, Iowa, was plagued by a giant 8-foot bat-like creature with huge leather bat-like wings, and it had a horn on its head that could project a light. And for 5 nights, it terrorized the small town. And on the 5th night, during thunderstorms, it appeared with a smaller version of itself, perhaps the female gender or the offspring, before descending back into the coal mine and disappearing, never to be seen in Van Meter again.